I'm Tradu, and this is the first in my series of VOD reviews of my Mythic kills in Nerub-ar Palace as a Shadow Priest. And just like in Amirasil, I'll start out with talent loadout, which is probably going to be very similar on a lot of bosses. It's going to be Archon, because that's currently the best in most situations. Ulgrax is mostly a single target fight, but he does have an ad phase. You're looking at playing the Void Eruption build with Shadow Crash added, which also takes Mindbender just because you get a nicer path to Mastermind. On the class tree side, you are looking at just taking all the defensive stuff you can, Lights, Inspiration, and so on. You can pick between Sanguine Teachings and Vampiric Embrace, just depends. If your raid leader wants Vampiric Embrace somewhere, then pick it, that's fine. I played Phantasm accidentally. I forgot to change it. I would have probably played Void Shield instead, but you can move that point wherever you want. Life Grip CDR is fine as well if for some reason you're life gripping frequently. The rest is basically locked in. Obviously you need Halo, otherwise Archon doesn't work. You want the extra range because it's convenient. So that's basically what you're looking at in terms of talents. For gear, you're going to be playing Spymaster's Web on every boss this tier unless they nerf it a lot, because it's just really good with how Shadow works with Execute and being able to choose where you use the stacks, especially in progress. That's going to be very powerful. Ulgrax is a very long fight, so you end up getting a lot of Spymaster's users. Your second trinket is going to be just whatever passive trinket you have, that's good. I use the Ritual Knife from Delves because that's what I happen to have. You can also use Changeling, you can use Gale of Shadows, you can use the Sack Brood. Those are the main ones, I think. So let's go into a plan for how to do cooldowns on this fight. Defensively, it doesn't really matter if you are in the first or second soak group. Either way, you're going to Desperate Prayer your soak, and then you're going to Desperate Prayer either during the charges or during the yelling that he does afterwards while he's hungry. That's where it's going to help the healers the most. You can also use Dispersion for the soak if you really want to, but then you're doing no damage, and that's annoying and not fun, so maybe not. Then you have Fade, which you can use a lot on this fight. You can basically macro it into something, and most of them are going to hit something useful. You'll see here in Viseria's sheet, it's highlighted as red where I've put it to cover as many damage events as I can. But that's just because it doesn't account for the 10-second cooldown reduction talent. So really, these work. They're just closer than 30 seconds, so Viseria's sheet doesn't like that. For offensive cooldowns, there's basically two patterns you can look at. Either way, you're sending everything on pull. But then the question is, do you continue sending all your cooldowns on the boss? In which case, you're going to be holding the second Void Eruption until the start of the second phase, which then also pushes your next one to after the next phase. So you're essentially just using it at the beginning of each phase. If your fight goes really long, this way you can actually end up losing a cast, but that's only if the fight goes very long. On hours, I think that would have happened if I did this. The other pattern is you use it on pull, and then for every ad phase. So that's these Shadow Fury icons, the Juggernaut charge. Because on progress on this fight, if you're struggling, it's most likely in the ad phase, because that's the most hectic one. There's ads running all over, healers need to heal, you need to get out of the charge, maybe the charge zones you off from your group. So using CDs there to clear out the ads faster is nice. Shadow Fiend you just press whenever the button isn't very good. Halo you press either on cooldown or you press it with your Void Eruptions. Either one is fine. I would probably recommend just using it with Void Eruption, then once in between, then with Void Eruption. Even though that will lose you casts on this fight, it's going to work out to be basically getting you damage where you want the damage. So if you're holding for ads, the halo here is also going to help you with the ads. If you're holding for the boss, then you're going to still get the halo damage for the boss. So it just depends where you prefer getting the damage. The timers here aren't entirely correct. Like until the charges end and the eating starts, that's fine. But then it depends how quickly you actually feed the boss. So everything after might get desynced a bit. But the important thing is just to remember, do you want to add damage or do you want boss damage? And are you in soak group 1 or 2? Which determines when you Desperate Prayer. Now let's get into the actual VOD, which is going to be really long and on Twitch because my Warcraft recorder broke. I make a mistake in my very first GCD before the pool. I cast Vampiric Touch instead of Shadow Crashing, which is a minor mistake, but yeah, it's a mistake. I like doing my opener slightly different than what's in most of the guides, which it doesn't make any difference really. I just prefer it, which is Mind Blast, then Fiend or Bender, and then in the second Mind Blast. Just because that lets me react if I get a Mind Devourer proc. I can use that immediately instead of overwriting it by going Mind Blast, Mind Blast. One thing you'll notice as well during the fight is that I'll be moving my cursor around here a lot between Torrent, Blast, and MFI, because somebody in my chat was asking, how do I fit in all of my torrents? It's actually mostly pretty neat on this fight, especially here at the beginning. You saw I fit it in just before the suck, so that's really cool. You'll see I Goblin Jump at the end of the suck, because the suck is really powerful. So you want to gate, and then you want to Goblin Jump at some point. You have it each time. This is also another reason why being in the first group is honestly nice, because you have your CDs running, which give you more mobility that you can use while being sucked. This is also one of the fights where Void Elf is probably better than Goblin, and probably also better than Dracthyr once that becomes available. Just because you can gate out, drop your Void Elf thingy, get sucked in, port back to the Void Elf thingy, and gain basically 2 gateways, which is a lot of distance for this suck. You probably still have to run against it a little bit, but it's much nicer than the tiny little hop you get from Goblin in this situation. Yeah, so we're going into the ad phase. The boss is going to port away soon. You just barely get another Void Torrent in here before he goes away. While he's running around, obviously priority number 1 is not getting hit by the charge, because that would be very sad. After that, your priority is getting your dots up on the ads. Cast some manual Vampiric Touches first, then Shadow Crash, then maybe some more Vampiric Touches or a second Shadow Crash at some point. And then you can go into CDs and Blast. You're still a Shadow Priest though, so your damage is not actually going to be very impressive. It's still probably the most useful point in the fight to use them. Then you want to pick up your food and go to the boss. One thing we do later in the fight, but not for the first intermission, is moving the ads closer to the boss, so you can actually pick up the food, feed him, and then pick up more food and feed him again, because you need more than 20 food to make him happy on Mythic. So you see some people waste their gateway to go over and grab more food, while I'm just sitting here hitting an immune boss. Eventually, though, we get him fed enough and he stops bellowing, and we go back to stage 1, where we're back to just having basically 3 mechanics you care about as ranged. The webs dropping, the group soak, and the acid to clear the webs. So here we have the webs dropping. They drop in the way where the gateway is going to go, so that's not good, which is why we're going to use the acid to clear out those areas as a focus, and melee as a second priority, because otherwise they'll dash into it or whatever. If you do end up getting webbed, you can get saved by getting acid dropped on you. You can't get bopped because it's magic, so that means maybe spell warding works, probably does, but who plays a prop paladin? Here you can see again I Goblin Jump during the channel, and then I get to just continue on with my life. The main thing that you want to fade is this Venomous Lash that just happened, because that happens roughly on the same cadence as you can fade. In my CD plan, it's lined up basically to cover as many of the acids and the venomous lashes as possible with the Fade. Here you can see I'm doing a kind of mixed version of the CD patterns, where I used mine on pull, then on the ads, and now I'm just sending on the boss. You'll also see that I've used my web again. I used it on pull with my CDs there, then I didn't use it for the second PI, and now with the third one I'm using it again, because that's roughly how long it takes to fully stack. You're looking at roughly 4 minutes, and this fight is long enough that you end up getting a bunch of those uses, especially if it's as slow as ours. We ended up taking almost 10 minutes, so I get the one on pull with like 2 or 3 or whatever stacks of web, then I get this one with roughly 40, and then towards the end I get another one with another 40-ish, and then after that I just keep pressing it, because the fight is about to end, I might as well get some value out of it. The technically correct play there would be to wait with cooldowns until it's actually at 40 stacks at the end, and then sending it. Here you can see I'm running around a bit like a clown. I've desynced my Mind Bender and my Halo because I just forgot to press it. But we're a bit better about moving the ads to the boss, so we can feed more easily. Again, I'm just hitting a boss who isn't really taking damage, so that's a bit dumb, but what can you do? We also have a couple of people getting webbed. I should have crashed to help them and then done damage instead of just Vampiric touching one, but again, I'm not very good at remembering to crash things on raid bosses, because I don't tend to actually play crash very often. You can see we're kind of bleeding out. We're going to end up having a bunch of people dead towards the end, which is why the fight ends up taking forever. Here with the acid, you can see I just barely touched this web that was down here, but it still gets cleared because the acid is pretty generous with what it clears. As long as you just barely touch the web, it goes away. Here you can see again as well the Void Torrent just barely finishes before the suck. Gateway out, run against it a bit, Goblin Jump, and then keep running against it. And I finally get my Halo off. We get another person webbed. I help out a little bit, but not that much, because they don't have that much health, the webs. Here's the melee soak. You can see we have cleared out the webs between the soak and the gateway's path, so people don't get stunned by taking the gateway, because that would be annoying. And now we go into the final ad phase that we're going to get, where a bunch of extra people are going to die for absolutely no reason, which prolongs the fight a bit. You can see I'm already at 30 stacks of my web, 31, which I'm going to be holding until the boss comes back. In this ad phase, I'm just going to use the Halo, I believe, and then otherwise nothing long. Yeah, here's the Halo. You have really long range as Shadow, so you can actually stay quite far away from the charges. You can reach across the charges as well. Like if you're standing here, the charge goes through the middle, and then you're over here, on the ads over here. You can still hit through, or in this case, some of the ads over here, you can still hit them, which is quite nice, because a lot of other specs, especially if you dodge very aggressively to be sure you don't get hit, they might not be able to hit across, while we can. And here again, we're a bit better about moving the ads over to the boss, so it's easier to feed him. I give him my food, I start pressing buttons on him, even though he's not done being fed. You can see here he's at like half energy. It finishes at full energy. I even start going into my cooldowns a bit early, even though that doesn't make sense, he's immune. Here you can see I'm going into my Void Eruption and so on, just as he finishes hitting the energy. I use my web here, which had roughly 40 stacks, my second potion, and blast. Because the goal here, because we have so many people dead, is we really want to beat the boss before he does his second group soak of the phase, because we're going to just tell everybody, soak the first one, and then if the second one happens, too bad. Because we trust that we can beat the second one, which also does happen. We beat it pretty comfortably. The only people I believe who are dead are DPS as well, maybe one healer here. So it's pretty comfy in terms of staying alive. And you can see the second soak would be in 20 seconds from roughly when he dies. Which also is the Berserk, apparently. I hadn't even noticed. But yeah, I guess we ran just up against the Berserk. And that's this video. I'll include the Viserio raid plan notes in the description, in Pastebin probably, and I'll also include a link to join my group on Viserio's sheets, where I'll maybe not be constantly updating, but I'll at least have my plans posted, the ones I've set up already, and might update as I get to the bosses. So that might be useful for some people. And yeah, the next boss is going to be the Bloodbound Terror, and or Horror, one of the two. That's also something we killed tonight, and I'll be making that video next. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.